Hey folks, this is Matt once again, and welcome back to another review of another film that I reviewed maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but for Christmas, well, a little bit before Christmas, a good friend of mine, Michael Keane, he sent me the Blu-ray of this, Virtuosity. And I wanted to watch it again, and I figured why not do a review for it? Because I enjoyed this film. I've enjoyed this film ever since I first saw it as a kid. It's a film from 1995. Pretty bad cover on the Blu-ray. It's pretty lazy cover. The DVD and the poster is much better. No features, but the film did look good on Blu-ray. And it's a film, as you can see, starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, who would later do a film together called American Gangster. Film also has William Forsythe, Louise Fletcher. Music is by Christopher Young. Has a pretty good soundtrack. And it's directed by Brett Leonard. Brett Leonard, the director of The Lawnmower Man. And he also did Hideaway with Jeff Goldblum. I don't know what Brett Leonard is doing nowadays. But The Lawnmower Man was a hit, so he got this movie. I know from the trivia on IMDb, Denzel has said that he did this film because his son wanted him to do a film like this. And I'm sure when American Gangster was out, because it's such a, I don't want to say artsy fartsy, but it's a film I didn't care for. I know that. I didn't care for it. I thought it was boring. I thought it was too long. But it was much more of a dramatic, kind of one of those films that seemed like it was made to try to be an Oscar contender, but then that never happened. I guarantee you these two guys were probably making fun of this movie, but I like this film more than American Gangster. And honestly, this is my favorite Denzel Washington film. There are many Denzel films I like. I like the work he did with Tony Scott, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, Unstoppable, The Take Your Pelham 123. I liked Crimson Tide. I liked The Pelican Brief. I liked Courage Under Fire. I did not care to see The Magnificent Seven. It just held no interest with me. I did not care for The Equalizer. That's just me. I was not a fan of it. If I want to see The Equalizer, I will just watch John Wick. But Denzel is a great actor. He did a great job in films like Glory. That's another good one. One that's kind of interesting nowadays is The Siege with him and Bruce Willis. If you ever see that film, you'll know what I mean. It's kind of creepy. Yeah, if you look up the film The Siege, you'll know what I'm talking about. But overall, yeah, Denzel's a great actor. Russell Crowe, I don't mind him depending on the part. I thought he was good in The Nice Guys. That was a film I enjoyed. Gladiator, everyone always talks about Gladiator. Russell Crowe was good in Gladiator. It's just not one of those films that not my type of movie. I don't know how to call it. It's not a bad movie. I'm not going to say Gladiator's a bad movie. It just wasn't my type of film. But this I enjoy. This is a time in movie history where they thought virtual reality was a big thing. I mean, nowadays you have I forget what it's called. I see some guys on YouTube play it where they put the headset on. They're going to look around. It's a VR set, but there's a certain name for it. I forgot what it was. But this is when they thought VR was going to be like everywhere. At this time, you had the works of William Gibson, which led to films like Johnny Mnemonic. You had a little bit of cyberpunk thrown in there. So you saw films like Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone, Tank Girl. Before this, The Lawnmower Man dealt with VR. A lot of films. Even films like Strange Days. And Strange Days is one of those movies I saw a long time ago I didn't care for when I first saw it, but I haven't seen it in forever. Judge Dredd, I'm not a fan of the Stallone version. I prefer the Carl Urban version. Johnny Mnemonic, yeah. Tank Girl, I actually don't mind. I liked it. And I know there were a few others dealing with that. Even Full Moon was doing stuff like Arcade, which was a piece of shit. But Virtuosity, I enjoy. It's Denzel Washington was this cop, and you find later on through flashbacks and such that his family was taken, his wife and kid, by this asshole terrorist that Denzel's character's name is Parker. And the guy would say this line, "Hey Parker, this one's for you." And the guy's being interviewed by these reporters while at the same time Denzel's trying to rescue his wife and kid. But there's a bomb. His wife and kid get killed. He's got his fucking arm off, and he's just, well, actually, it's like this arm off. There's one of the arms off, and he's coming in. He's like shooting bad guys left and right. He even tells the news people to stay the fuck down. Shoots the bad guy. And in that state of mind, with his wife and kid dead, he has no fucking arm. His arm's missing, and these stupid reporters pop up, and without thinking, he turns in that state of mind. Who the hell's going to be in a straight mind? And he told him to stay down. He accidentally killed those two, and thus. And you find this out later in the film. But that's why in the start of the film, he's in prison. And it's this program where they use it to sort of perhaps train police officers. And they go into this VR and they go up against this guy, this criminal called Sid 6.7. Sadistic, intelligent, dangerous. A composite of shitload of personalities, everyone a notorious killer. Yeah, VR creation designed to put LA police officers to the test. So a lot of times Parker's the guinea pig and someone else, and you set that up at the beginning of the film. One thing leads to another. Russell Crowe's program gets put into the real world, and the only one who can stop him is a guy who chased after him in those VR simulations. So they put him back on the streets. And I really enjoy this film. I think it goes at a good pace. I think these two worked with each other very well. Denzel, very capable as a lead. He's a character who I felt sorry for. Just throughout the film, you see little flashes, and then later on you get the full gist of what happened. And to me, it's easy for anyone to feel sorry for this guy. Russell Crowe, some people could say he's chewing the scenery, but it's in a fun way. He's very entertaining. This is my favorite Russell Crowe performance. He's so energetic and he's so filled with life. He's having a ball with this movie. The soundtrack's really good. You have this band, I believe it's called Lords of Acid, and this instrumental piece that you hear throughout the flick. Also, you get little pieces of the song by Peter Gabriel called Party Man. Anytime it goes with a flashback to Denzel's past, you hear like a little instrumental version of it. And even at the end of the film, you hear an instrumental version. And then at the end credits, you hear the real version, Peter Gabriel's song. I really like that song. I think the rest of the soundtrack, I mean, this is a time where we're doing a lot of techno soundtracks, like Mortal Kombat, which is another great soundtrack. And yeah, we'll put Mortal Kombat above this, but I think they were both 1995, so a lot of good movies in 1995. And it's a chase movie where Denzel's chasing this guy. You get some capable action sequences. Granted, it's nothing on the level of a Michael Bay movie or anything, but I thought they fit the story well. A nice little thing is that because of what happened, his arm is actually made of metal. So there's little points in the film where that comes into play. William Forsythe, he's good in the film. He plays a captain of the police force who is friends with Denzel Washington. And usually I see William Forsythe as a bad guy, but it's nice to see him as a good guy, whether it be in The Rock or Blue Streak or this movie. So every once in a while it's nice to see that. The score by Christopher Young fits the film well. I don't mind the special effects. I mean, it's not going to hold up compared to today, but at the same time, I thought it kind of fit because it's from a VR reality, and VR reality is not photorealistic. And one of the things is when Russell Crowe's character gets in the real world, if he has bullet holes or if he has a finger off, he can use glass, and glass will like rebuild his finger, rebuild himself, fix his bullet wounds because he's made of nanomachines or some sort. But yeah, Denzel Washington chasing against an artificial intelligent killer. I actually liked the idea. I thought Brett Leonard did a capable job directing. I enjoyed the opening of the film, where it's in this subway station, which leads into this sort of Asian, I don't want to say restaurant, but one of those places where all the walls are made of paper and people have to sit on the floor to eat sushi. I forget what it's called, but it's one of those paper wall facilities. I don't know how you call it. And you have fun little shootouts. You have some nice sound music on the soundtrack. And the guy with them, he's kind of unsure, but Denzel has been through this a lot, so he knows what to do. And again, Russell Crowe is such a ball. Where he's like, one, two, one, two, three, four. It starts to shoot out. Denzel's going through paper walls and having a back and forth shootout. Russell Crowe takes care of the one guy that's with Denzel, but then Denzel comes up and goes game over and able to shoot Russell Crowe in the shoulder. One thing leads to another. Denzel's pulled out, but the guy, he dies from seizures from the machine. And Denzel, he doesn't even do well in prison because when he comes in, he's supposed to go into the isolation chamber, but these assholes fuck with him, I guess because he used to be a cop, and has to fight this guy, this asshole who's like white power, but he kicks the shit out of him. And this one nerdy asshole in this scene here is talking with Sid, and Sid wants the guy to help him out, and Sid, Russell Crowe's character, is talking about how, killing for real. It was a real rush. He's having so much fun. Uh, One of the few things I didn't care for the film is this psychologist lady, played by Tilly Lynch. I just didn't find her character that interesting, and honestly, I don't really think she was needed in the film. I think all you needed was Denzel and Russell Crowe, the verses, the chase between the two. She just kind of got in the way, and I don't think she was a terrible actress. It just, her character, the psychologist character, just was pretty weak character. Not much to the writing of her character. Not much to. I didn't give a fuck one way or another. So that was one of the few things I didn't care for. Just her character was just not needed, not needed at all. Or at least if it was needed, just wasn't that interesting of a character. But I do like when she's talking with Denzel and she's trying to get him to talk about his past, and then talking about the fight in the prison, and Denzel keeps telling her it was self-defense. And what, you trying to psychoanalyze me? What, hey, I didn't make the basketball game, and I didn't make the team, but that doesn't mean I killed the coach. And she's talking about, would it ever happen again? And he's like, no, it can't happen again, because my wife and daughter are dead. And Denzel, even for a plot some people may find is crazy, he pulls it off and you believe it. And you have a lead character who believes in the situation and has a good charisma to him and very easy to root for. The nerdy guy who's talking with Sid 6.7 gets in touch with this other guy played by Kevin J. O'Connor. If you don't know who that is, he's a guy who would be in the 1999 film The Mummy. He was also in Deep Rising as the sidekick to Treat Williams' character. He was a character in the Clive Barker film Lord of Illusions. He's in there working with android bodies. It pretty much tricks this guy to thinking he's going to get this virtual girl, but it's Russell Crowe. And that's where they explain these things with nanomachines. And Russell Crowe's born, kills Kevin J. O'Connor, and gets the fuck out of Dodge. And again, I like... This was a fun time during the 90s where they could be creative with technology, because who knew where it was really going to go. So the sky's the limit. So I like that kind of stuff. That sci-fi, technology, Android, VR, nanomachines. I mean, people could call it bullshit, but sci-fi until it becomes reality. Maybe sooner or later it will. But I like that kind of stuff in a plot. And especially if it's done in a fun, entertaining way. Not some pretentious way. Well, unless you do it very, very, very well. Otherwise, just give me the fun. Sometimes I'm not that hard to please. Sometimes I just want a fun movie. With some likable characters, like Denzel. When he's in prison and he's drawing some stuff with chalk and it reminds him of his daughter who used to finger paint. And that's one of those instances you hear a little bit of the Peter Gabriel Party Man song, or at least the music. Watching it again, I didn't notice that before, but I thought that was a nice touch. Then it repeats at the end credits. I thought that was cool. But yeah, Russell Crowe, he like cuts his finger off on purpose, and actually he bleeds blue blood, and he licks it. It's a good year. And gets the glass to fix it, and he's like, they're gonna like it here. And he has all these personalities, which I'm sure people go, well, they put like 100 or so personalities into this program. Isn't that a little bit much? Or much, if I learn how to talk. It didn't bother me. So I know some people are like, oh, why is it 1 or 200? I think they did that because one of the personalities in SID 6.7, like for instance, they come across a crime scene and there's in blood written "Death to the Pigs." I guess that's from Charles Manson type. And he was grown with killers put into him. But one of the guys had to be the guy who killed Denzel's family. And I think they made it such a big number, like 200, because if it was just 10, people would think it was just, what's the word I'm looking for? Convenient. Like, they put 10 personality of killers, and one of them just happens to be the guy who killed Denzel's family. Come on, that's a bit too convenient. But if you have 20, people still may think, well, that's a bit convenient. Of all the killers, 20 of them, one of them happens to be the guy who killed Denzel's family. Isn't that convenient? But if you put 200, it's a big, outrageous number, and there's no way in a film he's going to unleash all those personalities. But at the same time, it makes it less convenient. It's like, well, of course, yeah, it's one of hundreds. It just made more sense. I don't know, this seems like a nitpick, but that's what some people pick on. That's not the reason they hate the film. It's like one of those little things. But to me, it's perfectly understandable why they put such a big number of that. Because that way it's less convenient that one of them happens to be the guy who killed Denzel's family. Which I like that aspect. Because throughout the film, Russell Crowe keeps mentioning how that personality of the guy who killed his family keeps oozing to the surface anytime he's around Denzel. And I like that idea. And it leads to, later on, one of the best lines of the movie, where Russell Crowe goes, just because I'm carrying around the joy of killing your family inside of me doesn't mean we can't be friends. See, I mean, someone once told me that what makes a good film, you need a good guy. You need a good bad guy. If this doesn't fit the bill, I don't know what does. Good guy and a good bad guy, competent direction, they had a decent budget behind this. For the time, the special effects worked for the time and the budget they had. Competently made. Soundtrack fit the film well for the subject matter. Russell Crowe, his character takes over this club that has these psychedelic screens in the back. He's talking with a robot bartender, and Russell Crowe goes, I think you're one of my ancestors, you know? I'm vaguely offended by that. Just turns around and shoots the robot in the face. And he fucks with these hostages, like he likes the music playing, and he's like trying to create a remix and play the music and get people to stream and maybe do remixes of the streams. It was really a fucked up killer. And easily shoots these 4 cops. Does it get the 1, 2, 3, 4? Denzel's able to get there, shoots the ever loving fuck out of him. And when Russell Crowe leaves, he's like, I know you, and gives Denzel a middle finger. And that's where you get that Lords of Acid instrumental music that I enjoy. And Denzel shooting the shit out of them, jumping on the car, going after them. And Russell Crowe's fucked with them. Here's a little tune for those in crime-busting land. The Symphony of Collision! And just bashing cars left and right. And then Denzel tells the woman to slide the car, and he gets his shotgun, shoot right at Russell Crowe's body. You have a lot of fun scenes with Russell Crowe's character. There's a moment where he's wearing like a purple suit that he got from that club, and he's walking. You have the tune of Staying Alive. And this guy fucks with him and nonchalantly just breaks the guy's neck. He just don't give a fuck. And weirdly enough, an appearance of the UFC, the next event he goes to. I didn't know when the UFC started, but not many films talked about the UFC in the 90s. But this showed the UFC, which nowadays is such a big thing. I'm like, holy shit, the UFC was around in 95, shows how little I know about the UFC. But I'm like, wow, this showed that. And there's a little bit of fighting in there. Russell Crowe's hands get fucking blown off. There's hostages on a train later on. Denzel shoots at him, and Russell Crowe he, what's the word I'm looking for? He sets up and incriminates Denzel for something that he didn't do. So they think Denzel killed this poor woman hostage, but in reality he didn't. So he's got to deal with people chasing after him, as well as chasing after Russell Crowe's character. And I'm not going to go through every single thing of it, but there's that moment where Denzel's arrested, he's in an armored vehicle, and when he wakes out of this flashback he's having of his family, there's Russell Crowe, and he's like, how's the wife and kid? Still dead, huh? And he gives that line that I said before, just because I'm carrying around the joy of killing your family inside me, doesn't mean we can't be friends. And you get to the finale where he takes over a TV station that names Death TV, and the more people who view, the more that he's going to kill. And Denzel's able to fuck him up and stop him. There's one moment where he's being chased by the cops, and he's got to use his arm to bash through this glass and try to get to Russell Crowe. They have a little bit of fisticuff fight on the rooftop. Some nice stunt work, crashing through glass. You have a interesting little ending where they trick Russell Crowe's character, making him think that they're back in, they're still in reality when they're actually in VR. Because what happens at the end is that the psychologist girl, her daughter is kidnapped and they didn't know where she is. So they do this little trick which has some interesting things. Like a shot where you see Denzel fall to the floor and die, but then he's alive because that part's in VR. Thought that was interesting idea. Before that Denzel used his robotic arm and punched a hole right through Russell Crowe's head and yanked this tube thing out. I mean, the very, very finale, I mean, if I have any things that bug me, the psychologist woman, Kelly Lynch, just wasn't that interesting of a character. There's a moment where William Forsythe's character dies. I don't think it was necessary. It wasn't necessary to kill him. Just my own personal nitpick. Forsythe didn't have to die. His character didn't have to die. And also the bomb at the end. There's this bomb at the end, and on the one hand, I get why they did it because it's in reference to his past, where his wife and kid they died from a bomb, and this is sort of this is redemption of another woman and her kids, saving them. So the idea, I understand, it made sense for the film. It's just one of those cliches. It's weird how cliches, some you go with, some you don't. You do see a cliche 100 times and it doesn't bother you. You know, the cliche, for example, of the good guy getting beat up and then making the comeback and beating the bad guy. That's a cliche, but it's a fun cliche ever since seeing it in a Rocky film or Van Damme's early films or so forth. But one of those cliches that bother me is you have the bomb that's ticking down and it's always a guesswork. Either they do it with a wire, is it the green wire, is it the red wire, is it the blue wire, or here is some little receptacle that he gets a little piece. I like this little twist on it. There's this fan and he stopped it with his robotic arm, and since it's torn, he's able to get a piece of tube in order to bypass the bomb. But again, it always ends in a guesswork where, to be honest, in reality, you die because we're not that lucky in real life. But in a movie, they are. I don't know anyone in a bomb squad, but it almost makes me want to ask them, is this always how you... Is when a bomb needs disarmed, is it always a guess? Like a 50-50 or yeah, 1, 2, or 3? Is it always that guesswork? If so, man, I won't. You need... Well, I guess someone needs to be in a bomb squad, but I won't blame anyone for retiring. Like, no, check is in the mail, I'm gone. But it's one of those things that just... It's just one of those cliches that I never care for. The whole, is it this wire or this wire? And just guessing. But it's one thing if they knew what they were doing, yes, that's it. But it's always a guesswork. It's just, unless it's a piece of shit movie like Arlington Road where they don't even get to the bomb. It's just a twist. The bomb was there the whole time, killed everybody. Unless it's a piece of shit movie like that, I just never care for that cliche. But again, it's a nitpick. I know it's a nitpick. But it's something I had to mention. So other than that nitpick, and I don't think William Forsythe's character needed to die. The female character just wasn't that interesting. But on the flip side, I thought these two worked very well. They make the movie. I think it's a fun idea, and artificial intelligence coming to the real world on a murder spree, and the guy's backstory, a little bit of redemption as well as to stop this guy. You have a fun techno soundtrack. I'm not a big techno guy, but the music fits the film, I thought, very well, as well as a nice score by Christopher Young, who did the scores to, I forget how many Hellraiser films he did, but he's a good composer, Christopher Young. I believe he did The Fly 2 as well. Brett Leonard, he did perfectly fine. I think it's his best film. I don't mind The Lawnmower Man. Hideaway's not that great, but I think this is his best film, and the action scenes, they're not on a scale like, it's not a huge scale action scenes. It's just competent action scenes. You're not going to get John Woo or Michael Bay or Roland Emmerich action scenes. You're not going to get action scenes that you would see in a Die Hard movie. But for what they were supposed to be, I thought it worked well. And again, Russell Crowe's having such a fun time. Denzel's very capable in the lead role. And nice way to end it where he has the cube, it just throws off the rooftop. And it ends with that song I like by Peter Gabriel, Party Man. Granted, a weird title for the song. But despite the title, I like the song itself. I think it's a really good song that I would play here, but I would get a copyright notice or a strike or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure these two guys hate the film, whatever. I would watch this any day over the very overlong, very boring American Gangster. But this is sort of an underrated gem to me of the 90s. It's a film no one really talks about. If they do, they kind of slack it off, or it's a guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty for liking this film. I just wish it had features. Well, if it had features, they'd probably be shitting on the movie, so maybe not. But at least a better cover. This is a lame cover. Just use the cover from the original poster or the cover that I'm going to try to put as the thumbnail to this video. Because this is just Photoshop bullshit. And no, I don't even think this has a trailer to it, so no features. But I'm glad to have this because it looked nice on Blu-ray. So, and to me, it's an underrated 90s gem. Always enjoyed this film. It was a lot of fun to watch it again. So either way, thanks for watching. Take care. And hey, Parker, this one's for you. Later.